a roll call just to double check that everybody is there. So I'll start at the top. Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Yes, sir.
Josephine Bartley.
Yes, present.
Kathy Casey.
Can anyone hear me?
Yep. Was that Kathy or was that Desley? That was Desley.
I'm here.
Kathy's here. Efeso Collins. No. Pippa Coombe.
Yes, here, Mr. Mayor.
Linda Cooper.
Yes.
Thank you. Angela Dalton.
Present.
Chris Darby. You there, Chris? Okay, come back to you. Al Filipina.
Gift, Your Worship.
Thank you. Shane Henderson.
Hello.
Oh, always so cheery. Richard Hills.
Kia ora.
Tracy Mulholland.
Present.
Thank you. Daniel Newman. Daniel. No. Greg Sayers. Nope. Desley, I saw before. Sharon. Have we got you there, Sharon?
Councillor Collins is on, Your Worship.
Yep, I see that on the sidebar there somewhere. Wayne Walker. Wayne is apparently on, I'm told, but I can't hear him. Wayne, can I get you to respond, please? Okay. John Watson and Paul Young.
I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So I'm still looking for Chris, you're on. I think I've got, did I see that somewhere?
Yep,
Chris,
I'm here.
you're on. Yep. And Daniel, are you there? Okay.
I know he's been trying to get on, Your Worship. He's got terrible trouble with his connection, so he's trying to phone in.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Angela. Greg, are you back with us? Okay, we're still waiting for Greg as well. Sharon, joining now, I think. And Wayne. And then we've got...
Not without issues, but I've solved them.
Good on you. And I've just checked. I've got Tau Henare. Tau, you back on?
No, he's not here, Your Worship.
Okay, just yourself, David.
Correct.
Okay, that's good. So I think if we're... I'll just double check for Sharon again. I know she was trying to get on. Are you there, Sharon, yet? Okay. So Sharon, Greg and Daniel are still trying to get on. The first item is COVID-19. I think we might just get underway. We're 5 minutes over now. So I'd like to welcome Ian Maxwell and Phil Wilson, who are both here. I'm conscious that in response to a request I made last week, we have a report from the controller, the update, and so most of the information is contained in that. But Ian, if you'd like to walk us through anything else that we might be needing to know, and we'll try to keep this section reasonably tight if we can. Ian.
All right, look, thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, councillors. I won't run through the report that Kate and Mace prepared. It's probably worthwhile knowing that both are involved in meetings around recovery at the moment, and that's probably a clear indication that the emergency response is transitioning down, and we're obviously focusing more on recovery. Just to give you an indication of that, certainly the Ministry for Social Development is gearing up to provide support, particularly through to food banks and others, so that over time is where we will be transitioning to, and the expectation is that we will be out of the business of welfare and food over the next month or so while we transition through to the Ministry. And the Ministry's received quite significant amounts of funding to support food banks and so forth operating across the city. And it's very similar with the regional isolation and quarantine coordination that is expected to be transitioned away from our response team, away from the Emergency Management Office by the end of June. So that's a sign that we're coming towards the end of that sort of initial response work that's been undertaken, and that council staff which have been associated with that will be able to transition back to business as normal. I'll just move quickly on to where we are with respect to Auckland Council. Again, right across the council group, the move to Alert Level 2 has really gone without issue. Auckland Transport Services are running at around 35 to 40% of normal capacity. Bit of an indication there that that's fairly up there in terms of the actual capacity that they've got available given social distancing. So certainly people are back on public transport, and I'm sure you've all experienced the roads and the motorways. Regional facilities, the Auckland regional facilities attractions are reopening. While we've got capacity for around 30% of our staff, that's increasing to 50% next week. We've actually had right across the group probably only around 20% actually taking that up. So we still have many staff who are continuing to work from home on any particular day, but teams are rostering, so different people are coming in. And I think as we head into the future, we'll see a significant proportion of our staff continue to work from home, but rostering as in order to achieve their work requirements. Those essential services teams, which we split into smaller units during alert levels 3 and 4, are now starting to come back together, and you'll be aware from the recent press announcements that we're reopening many of our community services, our pools and libraries. They started last week, they continue this week, and they run into next week. And we've really had no issues to date, but attendances have been below usual levels. Recently, the government announced changes around social gatherings, so increasing it from 10 to 100, and we're still managing what the implications of that will be, but to date, there's been no particular issues. All of our governance arrangements, this committee I think is last meeting today, and we'll be moving more towards normal activities, and we are still deploying the social distancing and hygiene requirements, and really those things will continue into the future. We've started planning around level 1 as to what that may mean. So look, in general, I suppose the overall implication is that we're moving towards a more normal situation, and the focus is very much on matters which you've dealt with already today. What are the implications arising from COVID for council's finances and the emergency budgets and so forth? But from a health perspective, we're moving into a situation now where we're managing social distancing and hygiene requirements, putting in place processes to achieve that, and getting back as close to normal as possible. There is work going on around the water supply issue, and we'll have some more information to you regarding that. You're all aware that level 1 water restrictions are in place, and they are impacting council as well, around washing and cleaning of buildings and of roads and footpaths, those sorts of things. But we are also gearing up for subsequent water level reductions, and how we as an organisation can respond to that. So there'll be more of that information coming through. So look, I'll stop there, and if there's any particular questions, I'll answer them now, or I can get back to people.
Thank you very much, Ian. Phil, is there anything you want to add to what Ian has said from the recovery perspective?
Not much, Your Worship. Morning, afternoon, councillors. Ian's talked to the transition matters. All I would add to this is that the project team in the recovery space is hitting its straps. Planning is getting reasonably well advanced. The concern that I've talked about previously about the need for alignment between central government agencies, other players in the recovery space, again, is coming along well. There are meetings for your interest today and again on Tuesday with central government agencies. So I'm pleased that out of that we will make sure there is good alignment and clear responsibility of different parties for a recovery effort. Just finally, to note that quite a successful effort, Wellington-based, for the local government sector generally to coordinate around response activity is now moving into recovery mode itself to ensure that there is good resources, support and some central planning around recovery activity supported on a multi-agency basis and involving Solgum and local government New Zealand and Wellington. That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Ian and Phil. If I just two brief items to update people on. In regard to recovery, obviously international students are important to us as a city, $2.8 billion a year in expenditure from them. I've been in contact with the Minister of Education, Chris Hipkins, who's been really helpful and cooperative, and with Auckland University and ATEED. And I put through to ministers last night a proposal for a trial for Auckland University to open up for some of their long-term and therefore high-value students with full quarantine procedures, and they would use a particular hostel for quarantine. There'd be 24/7 supervision, and if this worked, then that could be spread out to other educational institutions. It's notable that I've had a lot of submissions, not only from the educational institutions, but also Heart of the City. And the Heart of the City is a bit broken at the moment because there's still a huge deficit with domestic students, international students and tourists not coming, and people under a lot of pressure. But if we can pull that off by offering a partnership with government and not just saying open your borders, but we will work with you to trial the safe opening of the borders to a particular group, which is international students, that would be great. But I acknowledge that the government's got a pressure on it from a lot of groups, wanting to come in, and health has still got to be a critical factor. The second is just to indicate to councillors that in the last week I've been in touch with the Mayor of Hamilton, Paula Southgate, and the Deputy Mayor, Martin Gallagher. We know that Hamilton has got an unused resource consent for water from the Waikato. If they were to pass that to us in the interim, that would give us the consent to take the extra 25 million litres a day that the upgraded water treatment plant would be able to cater for. In principle, the council has supported that with their meeting yesterday. They'll put it before their formal council on, I think, in June. And we're hopeful that that will be part of getting another 36 million litres a day from a variety of different sources. So that's quite good news. I'm trying not to enter into battle with the Waikato Regional Council. I just think it's unfair to accuse Watercare and of being incompetent and not looking at sustainability. I checked the figures, and Auckland is the second most sustainable city in the country in terms of water usage, and that's really important. Lower per capita usage for residences than almost any other place, I think, except the Bay of Plenty. So just throw those into the mix. Now I have a series of questions, starting with Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a great report as always. I just want a quick question here. So our financial assumptions are that we're looking at level 2 for the first quarter of the financial year, then level 1 for the rest of the year. So how are we looking now in reference to the situation that we have today? Because it looks like things are getting better than we might have hoped.
Thank you. Good question. Ian.
These are alert levels in association with COVID. So I'm getting there's also water restriction levels, so that's the reason for my question.
Yeah, if we go to level 1 more quickly than what we're anticipating, what impact will that have on the city?
Well, that will have a positive impact. So I think if we can, level 1 is essentially associated with border controls, but you've also seen situations where sort of key workers are starting to come in at the border, and the impression that we have is that that's likely to be extended. And I think what the Mayor has just outlined in terms of students could also come into that. But look, a move to level 1 will help our economy and indeed will help the finances of council. But it's a matter of having to take the right sort of assumptions, and we've got that included in the budgets that will go out for public consultation, and we'll have a chance to have a look at that when the consultation is over.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Casey.
2 questions, Phil, one for yourself and one for Ian. Ian, what difference has the rain made to the dam levels? Has that eased things off a little bit?
It's only a very small amount. I haven't actually got the figures in front of me, but I can
help with that, Ian.
Oh, okay.
I get the figures each morning, Kathy. As of Wednesday, demand was down to 414 million litres a day, which is within the 420 target. Went over on Tuesday, but was below on Monday and Sunday. The lake level has come up from Monday at 42.9% to 43.4%. So it's had a marginal impact. It's stopped the further sliding and has lifted it just half a percent. But we need a whole lot more and more consistently. We're currently 34% less than the average for this time of the year.
Okay. My second question is for Phil Wilson. Phil, when will councillors get back around the table in any number?
Through the chair, this is the final emergency committee meeting. We resume committees of the whole progressively over the next while, and I will give you some, and I know that I'm not quite answering the question, Kathy. I will come back and communicate some guidance around councillor numbers around the table as opposed to coming in on Skype. If you could let me come back to you after the meeting on that, I will do so.
Thanks, Phil. I think we were thinking about 10 councillors could be present at this point, with the others coming in on Skype. Is that where you were heading, Phil? Okay, sorry, Phil, I don't think your mic's on there, mate. What Phil's been saying is he thinks that's about correct, but it depends on the rules at the time on social distancing. Okay, and it'd be great to see your smiling face back amongst us, Kathy. Councillor John Watson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for that good news with respect of Hamilton City Council and that consent. So well done on that. That's good to hear. And my question is to do with the water restrictions, and is really a request. Ian mentioned about the report back or information coming back in terms of the water restrictions. What I would appreciate is detail in that response that goes to how we're dealing or helping the small businesses, of which there are many that rely upon water blasting type companies for their business and keeping people in employment. And I think just not in terms of these non-potable sites that seem to have had a bit of a mixed success rate in terms of A, being up and running, and B, being satisfactory to the needs, but also in terms of the messaging that's going out over the restrictions. So one of the things I hear most strongly from these small businesses is that the people, the public, are basically just not contacting them. So their businesses, aside from everything else, is falling away because the public perception is that no, there's nothing water related that can happen, and that's, A, it's a wrong impression, and B, it's causing quite a bit of additional hardship and difficulty for these businesses. And I think particularly in terms of signage, I know there's been no concerted signage to indicate that this water comes, the water that they're using is not from town supply. Non-potable as a term doesn't mean too much to people. You know, this should be Watercare or the council should have some signage that these businesses that can put up that's relatively inexpensive, that says the sources of this water is from bores, or it's non-restricted water, or some more appealing term. But more important than that, what overall messaging can help these businesses in terms of public, that there are businesses who rely on water, who don't drain on the town's supply, who are sourcing alternative sources, and their work can continue. So I maybe don't need a response now, Mr. Mayor, but I want something back that goes towards how we're helping in that area of these restrictions for these businesses.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. Look, you'll see in your diary that I've organised a briefing up on my floor on the 2nd of June. I think that's next Tuesday after Queen's birthday at 11:30. We'll have Watercare there, and that will be an opportunity for Q&As and following up on some of those points. What I am advised about is that Healthy Waters has worked really, really hard to try to maximise the access to non-potable water for construction and things like water blasting. I think probably with the goal of supplanting 3 million litres a day of potable water. But you'll have the chance to run through those questions directly with them next Tuesday. So I'm anticipating everybody will want to be along to that. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you. Linda Cooper.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, just as a comment, I think a lot of this discussion will be really useful on Tuesday, and thank you for organising that Watercare briefing. I think that'll be really useful for councillors to work through that. And just to note, I've been seeing on the Watercare Facebook page some really good examples of businesses actually putting up the signs. We are using Watercare approved bore water, not dam water, and businesses are doing it themselves. So it's really good to see that. It lets people know. My question really was around your comments and May. Oh, we've got Ian here today. Around the working with Watercare. It's the last paragraph, last bullet point of your report. How have you found working with Watercare? Has it been with Healthy Waters, Watercare? Has that been a good relationship? Could do better? What's your view, if you don't mind?
I'm not sure. Is Mace there? No. All right. No. Look,
I think Mace is on the line now. Can I just double check? Mace, are you there? I was told he was going to be on. Yeah. Okay. He is there. Good. Mace, would you like to address that?
I think Ian might be in a good position as well, Your Worship, but generally, Councillor Cooper, through you, through the chair, we have a good relationship with Watercare in terms of working through our Lifeline Utilities Coordinator in Auckland Emergency Management, and more generally in terms of what Ian may cover off more is through ourselves, Auckland Council, as significant water users. So my home role, obviously in pools and leisure, we are a significant user, and we are putting in significant conservation measures as well. So I'm not sure if Ian wants to follow up, Your Worship.
Oh, look, thank you, Mace. Look, we have a good relationship with Watercare, and there are areas which I think as we head into the, if the water restrictions become more severe, there will be more impacts on business and economically, and potentially on the community in terms of welfare aspects. And I think we just need to gear up and look ahead and sort of do a bit of thinking and preparing as to what they may be. But I'm really confident that we've got a relationship and a group of people that can deal with those sorts of issues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say I think that's going to be the key to working through wherever we end up, and hopefully it's with fuller dams, but is that integrated working at all levels, right from governance right through all of our staff, to actually be proactive. And I think we got all of it caught off guard and having to be reactive. And I think that this is this is where we, if we're going to make relationships better with CCOs, I think it's got to be a real family affair with working right through the levels of governance and management. But thank you, Mace and Ian.
Yeah, thank you for that, Linda. And on Tuesday, I think we'll be looking at the immediate challenge, the crisis that we're dealing with, and it is still a crisis. Yep, our lake levels have come up a wee bit, but we need a hell of a lot more rain right through winter and spring to head off a pretty critical situation later in the year. What we need to focus on too, and Tuesday will only be the first of these meetings, is what our medium-term response is going to be to improve resilience in the face not only of population growth but climate change. And I don't think any of us were expecting that the climate change, extremes in weather conditions would mean a drought this severe and for so long. So, maybe some people anticipated that. I wasn't one of them, but now we've got it. Yeah, we may have to build a whole lot of redundancy into what we do if we're going to have these sort of droughts, say, once every 10 years instead of once every 200 years. I think that's pretty self-evident. Councillor Coombe.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I make a comment at this point?
Yeah, sure. It's questions or comments, whichever.
Oh, great, thank you. And thank you for the report, Mace and Ian. And I just thought perhaps because Bill and I have been at the Central Government Forum this morning, it's kind of a good opportunity to make a few comments about what was said there in terms of Council's emergency response, because the Prime Minister and the ministers there all were very positive about what they've seen from Council's emergency response to the crisis. And I think everyone felt, around the table felt really proud about how local government has been in partnership with central government in terms of responding. So I did feel when I was hearing those comments and the feedback that that was definitely the case on the ground in Auckland. So I did want to just pass that on, and Deputy Mayor Bill might have a few comments to say about that, but also just wanted to, another comment that was made, not just in terms of talking about the, we're going through respond, recover, rebuild, and Grant Robertson spoke about how the fact that's not going to necessarily be in phases, it's going to be in waves. And he talked about the fact that because the emergency response has really shown how we can be agile, we can be flexible, it's going to provide a really strong foundation for the framework going forward and how we can work in partnership, not just with central government, but there was quite a bit of talk about how through the emergency response, we've partnered with all sorts of organisations, and particularly with iwi, and how it's really shown there's a huge strength in the community and in organisations, and we just have to tap into it, which really will help us in terms of our recovery. So I just thought those were all very relevant points that were made at the forum. And just to note, just sort of another comment that was made in terms of, it's also highlighted the issues that we can deal with really when we are focused. And there was particularly comment about rough sleeping and sort of the inequalities that we've got in our community, and the crisis really put a spotlight on them. But it showed how when we're determined to respond, we have effectively ended rough sleeping overnight because we decided it was important. And so I think there was real recognition that this has put us in a much stronger position going forward if we can kind of continue that momentum. So that's kind of a long way of passing on a thanks to the tremendous job that has been done, but also how it's been seen in a much wider context and how it puts us in a much stronger position going forward. So thank you for that opportunity just to share some of those reflections.
Thank you, Pippa. Councillor Chris Darby.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, Mayor, you just made some comments about sustainability and water care, and we're one of the best cities in New Zealand. But look, can I point out to everybody, we're an international city. We talk about the world's most livable city. We benchmark against other cities equal to us. We don't benchmark against Gore and Tauranga or Westport. And I think it's very, very dangerous to swallow the water care sound bites here. It does lead to choking, as is evident. Mayor, I invite you to have a look at cities like Copenhagen, which have a per capita water consumption of 2/3 of what, at least 2/3, going towards half of what we do here in Auckland. Can I go to a question about the motions that were passed unanimously calling for a workshop, which I understand with Watercare board members, all of them, and all the members of this emergency committee, including the Independent Māori Statutory Board, I understand because there's a moratorium on workshops, unless they lead to a decision in June, July, that urgent meeting on a critical issue that we're facing right now cannot be convened, yet now I'm hearing there's some kind of workshop of a different category next Tuesday. Can somebody, the chief executive, I don't know who's on the line here, explain what is going on, please?
The short answer is the quickest way to get Watercare in front of them without putting pressure on staff was to convene the meeting myself on my floor. Once we get back into workshops, we'll be having a follow-up. This won't be restrained to one discussion. Councillor will be having ongoing discussions on the point about sustainability. I made the point purely because there was some attack on Auckland as being unsustainable from a council that was much less sustainable. So what I'm looking at doing is obviously trying to improve, and we have to improve, and we have to look at all of the options to ensure that sustainability and a resilient supply, which may be recycling wastewater at Rosedale. It may be taking more water from the Waikato if we ever get the consent in front of the body that's meant to be hearing it, and then we've got to make sure that we have local groups, including Tainui, on side. We need to look at desalination, even if it's expensive. We need to look at all of the options, including rainwater. So that will be an ongoing process, and when we're back to the normal process of workshops, I'm imagining that we will have a full workshop on that, and that may well be within your own planning committee jurisdiction.
So it actually does sit, I understand it does sit under Councillor Hill's and Councillor Coombs' committee.
Okay,
but,
yep.
But look, there are crossovers and we respect each other on that. But the words in that motion were an urgent workshop. And am I hearing that considering the crisis, the water crisis in Auckland, we cannot convene that urgent workshop because of the staff capability issues, capacity issues, at this time until August? I mean, this doesn't stack up. That's not reflecting on the motion.
Yeah.
So that needs to be addressed.
Okay. No, thank you for that, Chris. I'll just ask for officials for a comment on when they can convene that. It's probably not clear. Well, Megan, do you want to have a go at that?
Thank you. Yes, look, we know there's a lot of work that needs to go on because we want to make that a useful workshop for all parties. So we were looking at July, but I'm happy to hear feedback on that.
Okay, look, I'll just go to a couple of questions. Does anybody know what work Watercare did in evaluating the impact on industry, particularly the construction industry, prior to recommending to us putting in place the restrictions, and did it consult Auckland Transport and the NZTA?
My thought on that is not enough, but you'll be able to ask that question directly of Watercare on Tuesday. I've referred to Watercare the belief that more preparation needed to be done in that area, and I'm grateful for the really quick response from Healthy Waters in terms of making available non-potable water for some of the industries that might otherwise have been affected.
So there's no one on the line here today that can answer that?
I don't think so from Watercare on this session. They will be here for the next section, but that's not necessarily the people that you'd want to talk to.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, next question, Councillor, or comment, Councillor Wayne Walker, and finally Councillor Greg Sayers.
Oh,
Wayne, you're on.
Just following up from the issue that Councillor Watson raised about the businesses that are affected. There is a high degree of urgency around this. We're talking about businesses that have obviously been affected by the COVID situation, and whether we like it or not, the perception that's out there is not to use water generally, irrespective of what the source is. Some of these businesses could go to the wall very shortly, and they're certainly being affected. So I have a concern that we need to act much quicker. It's, as far as these other water sources are concerned, less a water care issue and more an Auckland Council issue or healthy water issues. If we're talking about non-potable water, bore water, stormwater, roof water, and that includes tank water, spring water, they're not under water care's purvey, many of those water sources. So we need an all-of-council approach rather than simply a water care approach. There should be some branding and messaging going out, and that should have happened already because this has been predictable for some time. So I certainly endorse the comments that Councillor Darby is making about other cities in respect of benchmarking, and I just draw the Councillor's attention to a whole array of cities in Australia who may well be in our bubble in the not too distant future that have been doing many things around this this issue for some years, including encouraging water tanks. So we need to be acting quickly and should have a specific helpline up and running right now around this issue. So I certainly invite a response.
Yeah, I think Linda Cooper's comment was pertinent before. If I'm out there using a water blaster, people want to know where I'm getting the water from if that's against the regulations. So those industries that have put up a notice that they're using non-potable water, I think that's really sensible. But again, I think these specific questions, Councillor, you're welcome to put those to water care, and I agree that water care and council have got to work closely together, particularly on the long-term future, and we need to up our efforts in that respect. What this drought shows is that climate change and its impact on extreme weather conditions and drought is not just something that will be minor and may occur sometime down the track in the future. It's major and it's here now, judging on our experience this year. So, looking at all of those options is important.
I follow what you're saying. Having said that, the main point that I'm making is that all of these other sources of water aren't under water care's control. Council influences them, so does the private sector, so do homeowners. So it's an all-of-council response rather than just a water care response, and bearing in mind they're in the business of buying and selling water. That is important. And we need to take a lead around that, and if anything, play a directive role in respect of water care. And I would also make the comment that this is an issue that goes to sustainability, but saving water also saves money, depending on the sources that it's coming from. So this can also go some way to addressing some of the budgetary issues that Council has got, because we do use a lot of water across all of our operations.
Thank you very much for that. Final comment, Councillor Greg Sayers.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Over the last few weeks, I've heard you mention kind of your potential options of solutions going forward was desalination. But just before I get onto that, maybe the council. I think the councils are making some good comments around the impact on the SMEs. I believe that you equally understand the issue as well. I do remember Ravine saying in one of our workshops or presentations to us that his organisation would. They're not going to really look at the water strategy off their own bat necessarily. They would take a directive from us as council and councillors and the governing body, and I'm sure we'll pick up on that. But look, just getting back to my point I want to make around desalination, and our in relation to water supply, there is a landfill proposed to go in the next 8 years up north in my ward in the Dome Valley, and that takes a significant amount. Will take the waste to landfill up there, and as you've mentioned, Phil, these desalination plants require a lot of energy, and there is technology available of these plants, these incineration recycling plants that basically take waste and turn them into electricity, cement, asphalt, glass, even affordable thermal paneling that can be used in housing. So they actually do recycle. The emissions they give off out of the kind of smokestacks are minimal. In fact, some of them are found within residential areas right inside of cities because the air quality is so good coming out of them. There's certainly, I've spoken to some of these firms based in New Zealand, and they confirm that the emissions are well below the standards required in terms of air quality within New Zealand. And of course, none of them would ever be located within a township. They'd certainly be in some sort of rural area anyway. So the point I'm wanting to make is that there's potential in our overall thinking to investigate further opportunities of protecting our environment, stopping landfill, these incinerating recycling plants being, perhaps could be part of the solution, particularly if they're producing power, which could then also, run a desalination plant and help us, in the long run. I think the obstacle isn't Auckland Council. It isn't these firms that operate throughout the world that have the technology. It probably isn't even the contractors that collect the waste. You need a partnership between all of them. The key one is central government. And at the moment, strangely enough, I guess that the Minister of Conservation and an MP of the Green Party is anti them because of worries about the emissions that they make, which is strange. So what I'd like to plant a seed is, a conversation perhaps being held with the Minister, trying to understand the scientific reasoning and concerns behind why she's making that stance, because it's probably a bit of a roadblock in terms of that option going forward in terms of desalination plants, which provide not only water, but also would take care of, this practice of burying our rubbish in landfills and covering them up on earth rather than perhaps recycling them.
Yeah, thanks for that, Greg. That's probably a question we need to direct to our waste management people. I have made some investigation of that because the idea has come up quite frequently. I think you can have scrubbers on your chimney stacks, but my understanding is that our waste management people and the general view of environmental experts is that incineration is not appropriate, but I think you're entitled to ask the question and entitled to get a more detailed answer than I can probably give you here. So that's something else to follow up. Just draw your attention to Bill Cashmore's suggestion on the sidebar to everyone, actually, that if you've got questions, maybe you can, if we can refer those, put them in writing to the Chief Executive so they come along prepared to answer some of the specific questions that you might have, that would be useful. Okay, look, thank you very much for that. That's been a useful discussion, and I'll move and ask for somebody to second. Maybe Councillor Sayers, if you'd second thanks for those that have made the presentations today, Ian Maxwell, Mace Ward and Phil Wilson.
We're very happy to.
Moved and seconded.
And proud to.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Aye. Carried.